Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I was just about to open. I'll reopen the hearing. First, thank you very much, everybody, for coming back after lunch. We're now going to move to our first submitter for the day, which is Kingheim Limited. Have I pronounced that properly? Yeah. Kingheim Limited. And you're Joseph Henahan, Mr. Henahan. Yes. Welcome. And you're going to be doing presentations for Meridian Farm Limited and Musson Family Trust. Yeah. Okay, so we'll start off with you. You've got a bundle here.
Yes, so I've got a bundle of, I guess, summary notes for everyone to read through as I chat away. There are 3 different submissions, so I guess
this is all 3 of them, is it?
It's all 3 of them.
Okay, so we've got your Kingdom one here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're in your hands. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. My name is Joseph Henahan. I'm planner and executive at Rezoning Requests. I'm appearing on behalf of 3 separate submitters today, being Kingheim Limited, Meridian Farm Limited, and Musson Family Trust. For each submission, my intention is to sort of briefly summarise the sites and the proposals, and then from there I'll go through and I guess touch on the main points of disagreement as part of the section. Right? And then address this part of my rebuttal evidence, but everything's been pre-circulated, so I will assume that everyone's statement, qualifications and experience in this judgment brief, as well as my evidence and rebuttal evidence. Okay, so the first submission I'll be talking about today is the submission on behalf of Kingheim Limited. So the submitters own a property at 44 Gillies Road on the Kerikeri Peninsula. The site contains an existing motel lodge complex known as the Reef Lodge Motel. First established in 1982 as a motel and campground and is legally established through various different resource consents and building permits. And recently, resource consent has also been approved to undertake a redevelopment of the site. So this plan has been prepared to sort of summarise the existing buildings and I guess all the consensual activities on the site. And I guess there's a lot going on, but there is a lot of activity and consensual on the site. So there is an existing manager's accommodation here. That's just intended to be relocated slightly. These are the main motel units, the long building here, and the small nestless. So those are intended to be replaced by a large standalone residential unit. There's also a little cottage down here which has been renovated. 2 separate areas of consented campground sites, parks. Also of relevance to this submission is the fact that there are hazards mapped on the property, including coastal erosion hazards, but there is an existing erosion protection structure in form of ravine along the coastal frontage. So the submitters are seeking to create a bespoke Reef Lodge precinct for the site. The purpose of this submission is to recognise and enable the ongoing operation of the existing mixed-use activities on the site, which includes visitor accommodation, residential units, and a motorhome campsite. The precinct is designed to align with the district plan with what is actually established and consented on the ground, providing a tailored and enabling planning framework that does not open the door for more intensive development than what currently exists. The reason that precinct has been sought rather than retaining the real production zone is that the site is already developed for visitor accommodation and tourism, not rural production. This precinct provides certainty for landowners and council and avoids unnecessary consent and minor changes. So turning to the main points of disagreement in the Section 42A report, firstly, the Section 42A report raises concerns that the Reef Lodge precinct would allow for more intensive use of the site. In response, it was clarified in my rebuttal evidence that the precinct only permits lawfully established activities on the property. Any new development must still comply with bulk and location provisions in the district plan, as well as all engineering related and hazard related other rules in the district plan. The precinct does not enable intensification, but it does provide certainty and clarity that the existing activities operating on the site are provided for by the district plan. Secondly, the Section 42A report refers to significant coastal hazards as a reason to reject the precinct. This assertion is at odds with the engineering report submitted with the original evidence, as well as the submission, which confirmed that the site is protected by an existing rock revetment wall and that redevelopment includes minimum floor levels and other mitigation measures. These measures have already been accepted by council in recent consents. This precinct does not remove the need to comply with further hazard, to provide further hazard mitigation in future proposals. The Section 42 report suggests that the rural production and the coastal environment overlay are the most appropriate planning tools for the site. In reality, the site and its immediate surrounds are already developed, including large dwellings and sheds on neighbouring properties. The character here is not typical of the rural production zone or the overlay. The precinct provides a more accurate and enabling planning response for this unique, long-established activity. Also, the Section 42 report describes the sites as an anomaly. In my rebuttal evidence, I agreed with this and noted that this anomaly has already set a precedent for further high-intensity development in the area. I touched on it in my rebuttal evidence, but there has been recently a large shed consented to be constructed. Whereabouts? It's up here. Sort of a long shed that is about 5 metres high and sits on top of a 3 metre high wall. So it has, and as part of the resource consent application and decision for that resource consent, they did rely on the densely built character of the reef lodge site as a justification for further intensifying their use on the property. There's also 2 dwellings on this property and there's a rather large house here as well. So creating the reef lodge precinct would contain and the established use on this particular property and protect the integrity of the rural production zone and the coastal overlay in that particular area. And so lastly, the Section 42 report argues that precincts should only be used for large areas. I responded to this in my rebuttal evidence, but in my opinion, the national planning standards do not restrict precincts by size. Precincts are a legitimate tool for site-specific planning, and there are examples in Whangarei and in Auckland under the unitary plan for precincts of a similar size, similar or smaller size. These examples were provided in Section 7 of my rebuttal evidence. So in conclusion, the reef lodge precinct is a more efficient, effective and enabling planning response than the rural production zone. It aligns with higher order planning instruments, maintains environmental safeguards, and provides certainty for all parties. The reef lodge precinct should be adopted as per the draft provisions provided in my original evidence. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you for your presentation and summary. I'll just see if any of the other commissioners have any questions for you.
Yeah. Just at your third bullet point there, you say the 42A report suggests, the word suggests is an interesting one, but says the rural production zone and coastal environment are the most appropriate planning tools for the site. It would seem on the face of it that they give you everything you want that's in the plan at the present time in terms of certainty as to what can be done on the site. If you're not looking at doing anything other than the accommodation, visitor accommodation, it seems that gives you certainty.
So I guess in the future there are intentions to change things again, but the consent that has been approved, the works haven't started. So it may be a case of continuing with the motel use or developing part of it with the house and then maintaining the production use. The current consent doesn't allow for them to operate consecutive, like at the same time concurrently. But I guess the intention is to sort of, if something like that was to happen, we'd have to go for another resource consent to approve that. And multiple residential units on the site are classified as a non-conforming activity. The discretionary activity for the hotel accommodation use from memory, that is set out in my evidence. So I guess it would be quite a complicated consent. These guys have already gone through quite rigorous consenting proposals to get to where they are. So I guess the intention is to try and make things a little bit simpler going forward. We do understand the need to continue to address hazard mitigation and sort of direct effects on neighbours that may be triggered by like a setback infringement or anything like that. So the intention isn't to try and sidestep around those bulk and location provisions. What it does do is just focuses any future resource consent application to those specific rule infringements that may be infringed, such as setbacks, such as impervious surface infringements, where you may need a stormwater engineer to get involved and to provide a mitigation measure that would be suitable in that particular area. So yeah, that is the intention. And I guess by enabling by inserting providing for these activities in the district plan, it provides the business with a bit of certainty. I guess the market currently it's a tough time, and so I guess the submitters are looking to try and get a bit of certainty and make things easier for themselves going forward, so they don't want to have to go back through and readdress any non-complying infringement for residential units on the property if they don't have to.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Just the second map you provided shows the coastal flood hazards.
Yes.
It shows coastal flood hazards in green. I can't quite work out where the green is. Is it over the almost quite a big chunk of this, that foreshore between coastal erosion 1 and 2 lines?
Exactly the one there. I can see it. Oh, so if you look up on the screen, the one on this.
Yeah, is all that green there other coastal flood hazard?
Yes. Yeah. Coastal flood hazard, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. So it's just a bit difficult to understand that. Thank you.
Just a question, you talked about size. In terms of the scale of activities, why was this site there regionally significant in terms of why it's special to be a precinct? Because all of the other precincts we've seen are regionally significant, 100 hectares or more, and offer in terms of the scale for the district special characteristics, which they've argued, and actually they've provided a whole lot of information about how the precinct would work and done that work themselves and presented that to council. I didn't see any of the evidence here.
I guess in response to that, the national planning standards do not specify that precincts only need to be used for larger scale and regionally significant activities or sites. I did review the national planning standards prior to submitting my rebuttal evidence, and I couldn't see anything along those lines. I'm effectively wrong, but I also reviewed other district plans to confirm how the approach was taken under those previous district plan processes, and there were similar sized or smaller sized sites with arguably similar sized activities operating on those particular sites. So I don't see any reason why it has to be limited to larger scale activities.
Did you want to comment about why it's significant for Rangi Puta, for example?
Well, I guess it's a quality accommodation facility, but I guess I didn't really see any need to comment on the site. Other than confirming back there, I can't see any reason as to why that would be a relevant consideration.
Are there any other larger scale accommodation facilities in the Rangi Puta?
I don't believe so. Yeah, I'm happy for that to be taken into consideration, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. My question was very similar to Commissioner Watson's question. So what does a precinct provide for this property that the underlying zoning or resource consents can't provide?
So I guess it provides certainty that these activities are built into the district plan and acknowledged. That will enable any future resource consent application to just be focused on a particular specific infringement that is infringed at the time. We're not seeking to, I guess, reduce setbacks or anything like that on neighbours, as I touched on earlier. We also understand the need to address any specific rule infringements such as engineering matters or hazard mitigation. So I don't think it would be appropriate to sidestep that in a way through the change process.
So the primary objective is certainty?
Certainty.
But if you've got a resource consent that that hasn't been implemented. That's part of the existing environment that we must take into account. So that would provide certainty, wouldn't it?
Well, I guess that there's a multitude of activities, and I guess it is where this does go over and above what is consented on the site, as it does allow for sort of multiple different types of those various consented activities, existing activities, and everything to operate.
So you've got a motel that's lawfully established and got its own existing use rights and part of the existing environment. There's certainty for the motel, I think. And then you've got your approved consents, which you've shown us, dwelling and motorhome, RV parking. They've been granted consent, so that's part of the existing environment. So there's certainty in those aspects. What other certainty do you need confirmed?
It also, so I agree, they do form part of the existing environment. That doesn't help us avoid the need for resource consent. Resource consents are still going to be required. The classification of that resource consent, if we are going to have multiple residential units on the site, will be non-compliant as opposed to restricted discretionary, but it's a simple setback. It enables that activities operating on the site to be taken out of the resource consent component. And it won't be a case of having to readdress the existing environment and get that through council every time. So,
okay. So would it be fair then to say that the certainty that you're looking to establish is for multiple residential dwellings?
I guess there's
other than the certainty that comes along with resource consents, existing use rights, and part of the existing environment, the certainty that your client's looking for is multiple residential dwellings?
That would be part of it. I mean, they want the motel units and everything to be permitted in the particular zone. So that's established. It is, like, in essence, permitted. That's because it's part of the existing environment and has existing use rights. I don't agree that it would be permitted, respectfully. And we still have to apply for resource consent if you want to increase the number of units.
Okay, so if you want, so we're talking about redevelopment.
Yeah, I guess it wants to be. We're wanting flexibility in terms of how these activities are going to operate going forward. If there are any increases in floor area or increases in interior surface, the resource consent that will be sought at the time will relate to those particular activities or particular infringements, as opposed to the activities themselves.
What you're doing is introducing uncertainty into the process by talking about impervious areas and residential units and other activities that the precinct arguably wouldn't be designed to cover. A precinct's really designed in this situation to cover the existing activities. So the precinct would be directed at providing for future visitor accommodation. It's not actually there to protect the landowner's interest to be able to provide other activities. Precincts are very specific.
Yeah, I mean, if an activity or anything that is proposed on the site isn't one of the activities covered by the precinct, then you'd be reverting back to the underlying zone and overlay for the site. So anything out of scope of the precinct is subject to the rural production zone provision.
Just being the devil's advocate on this, it's not a large site. I mean, doesn't mean it's insignificant, but it's not a large site in terms of being redeveloped. And then it's got all the coastal attributes, potential coastal erosion, and other factors that arguably are better considered under a resource consent application anyway. Maybe not as a non-complying activity. Is visitor accommodation non-complying under the rural production zone?
I believe it's non-complying. It was either restricted discretion.
I mean, if visitor accommodation was the intent of the precinct, then that's fine. But from what you're saying, is suggesting that perhaps the landowner wants to do something more.
Well, I mean, there's. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, through the chair, if I could ask a point of clarification, which might help unpack. I think I'm potentially coming to where the flexibility and how that differs from the consented environment. If Mr. Henahan can confirm, my understanding is that they cannot operate the motel consent and the residential component concurrently. That for them to operate the residential, they have to surrender. So I think the purpose of the precinct is to allow switching between the two and potentially both happening in some form together concurrently. And that is the genesis of my comments in the 42A report, to say that it isn't just about enabling consented development. It is going a step further to say that the selection of consents that are already approved for the site could happen, both of them together, which is the flexibility that they don't have right now.
Okay, well, that sounds like
Just to confirm, is my understanding correct?
yeah, that's a fair question. Would you like
Yeah,
to
I mean,
address that, Mr. Henry?
yes, that would be part of it.
I think what's been put to you is,
Yeah.
do you want to operate both at the same time?
There's no
Or be able to
particular,
switch backwards and forwards,
like,
back and forth?
with crystal ball gazing, I guess. They do have interest to do things with the site in the future, but in terms of what they're going to do, it's still up in the air. But there is potential that there could be sort of a mixture of those activities operating on the site. So yes.
It seems to me that you mentioned certainty to start with, and then I think you mentioned flexibility. Well, later on, it seems to me it sounds a little bit more like flexibility than certainty.
Well, I guess yeah, certainty and flexibility is probably reasonable. That's probably reasonable to say that. There's an existing consented business on the site that's been operating for some time. They do have consent to redevelop it, but that requires the removal of the business or the motel component of the business. The campground can remain as part of resource consent, so that's not here. But I guess they are looking for some kind of clarity and flexibility is probably a good way to put it, as you say, in terms of how they're going to operate their business in the future. So it seems to me that the non-complying issue that you're wanting to avoid relates to multiple residential units. Yes. Yep.
And as Commissioner Watson clarified before, I think rural tourism is enabled in the zone, discretionary, restricted discretionary, some form of discretionary. I mean, if the client, if the zoning remained, it would have. And they went for multiple residential development, and they say, let the motel go and allow that to happen. Having a lot of space to play with. A consent officer would have regard to all of those existing activities that have been established, and that would help them form a base outline of existing activities and a modified rural environment that would assist a non-complying activity application in any case.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, our overall consent would go non-compliant as a result. We'd be trying to justify precedent. Granted, you can utilise the existing environment to justify that. But I guess the aim would be to try and simplify any future resource consent application to just a matter of hand. Yeah.
I mean, again, playing devil's advocate. All those factors that you've just described and you've put to us as being unique. So the uniqueness characteristics that you're using to justify a precinct could possibly be used to justify non-complying activity.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that doesn't help us avoid the resource consent that we're seeking for.
I think I understand what it is that I think the client wants. It sounds to me like the flexibility to do either or both. Yeah,
and I guess overall, they are hoping that the district plan does acknowledge their activities on the site. So it's kind of they're also seeking acknowledgement that they are an existing activity. I do understand there is an existing environment argument there, and they do have that resource consent that provides that, but there is also an added component for this, and that is they do have that into the district plan.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Any other clarifications from council? Great. Well, thank you. It's an interesting discussion with this one. So we move on. Which one are we doing next?
Already.
Already in? Yeah. That's the property. Just remind us where we are with this one. So this has been reading so much evidence.
So this is Red Cliffs Road, sort of just north of Kerikeri. Actually,
it is Red Cliffs Road.
Red Cliffs Road. Yeah.
Between Red Cliffs and Purua. It's on that map. Looks good.
Bring it up on here as well.
This is like sort of like right on the sort of northern extent of horticulture zone.
Yeah, so the horticulture zone ends on the southern side of the river, and then there's more sort of agricultural land to the north. Yes. Okay, so this is the Meridian farm through here. Okay. So I'll just run through the summary. So Meridian Farm owned 2 titles at 119 Requests Road, Kerikeri. The original submission sought to rezone the 2 properties from the rural production zone to the rural lifestyle zone. The purpose of this request is to align the district plan zoning with the existing and consented development pattern in the land, which has already been subdivided into rural lifestyle lots through 2 recent resource consents. The rezoning will ensure consistency between the regulatory framework, being the district plan, and the actual use and development trajectory of the site. So Section 42A report raised concerns about an illogical finger, as it was put, of the rural lifestyle zone land, as it extends out into the, into the rural production zone. So there was going to be rural production land here and here, and then it would sort of surround the rural lifestyle zone. So that concern was understood. And as a result, we did revise the submission area. Yeah, so the submission area was revised and shortened, I guess, to remove that illogical finger that was discussed.
That's the one that goes off to sort of the west.
Yeah, to the west, yeah, northwest. So that land there, you see where there was 2 rural lifestyle of 5 hectare and 7 hectare lots.
Yeah, and you've chosen I mean, there's obviously a property boundary there. You've chosen a slightly northern boundary.
And that was mainly due to topography in that area. So I don't know if you can see there, but I zoom in. There is quite a significant change in topography in that location. So that's where that the zone boundary was chosen. So it's considered to be more appropriate to reflect topography boundaries for zone boundaries as opposed to actual cadastral site boundaries. Yeah.
Is that a ridge line or a gully?
I believe that is a ridge line. Yeah, it goes up. And so, as you'll see around here, sort of there's changes in topography that sort of justify the zoning boundary there. Back further closer to Requests Road, the interface or the defensible boundary between the rural lifestyle land and the rural production zone is already in place. That interface has already been established through resource consents that have been approved. These 2 titles have been created. These 2 are close to being finalised through the subdivision process, but there is an access way that's currently being constructed down here to these sites. So that is currently under construction. And once it's there, I guess that will add to that interface between the rural production land to the north and the rural lifestyle land. Secondly, the Section 42 report questions the relevance of the existing consented developments. Is my opinion that on its own, I agree that previous fragmentation does not automatically justify rezoning. However, it is undoubtedly a relevant consideration that should be factored in considering whether or not to rezone land. I noted here it's as relevant as other matters such as defensible boundaries or engineering matters or natural hazards. I guess it should be taken into account as those other matters are. The subdivision consents granted by council have already established a rural lifestyle character on the site, and rezoning for rural lifestyle simply brings the planning framework into alignment with this existing pattern of development and also character. Council has raised concerns about the cumulative transport impacts, particularly in relation to the heritage bypass. I acknowledge the rebuttal evidence of Mr. Collins, which was received last week on the 25th of September. In his rebuttal evidence, Mr. Collins agrees that the actual effects of the wider network are expected to be modest, and I agree with this. Mr. Collins does state, however, that the proposal is likely to generate higher vehicle kilometres travelled, greenhouse gas emissions and car dependence compared with more central locations enabled by the PDP. In my opinion, the rezoning of this land is unlikely to result in any measurable or quantifiable effects in that regard. This rural lifestyle zone is located just 6 kilometres from Kerikeri and 7.5 kilometres from Waipapa. Given its close proximity to main business areas, I do not consider the effects of vehicle kilometres travelled, increase in greenhouse gas emissions or vehicle-related pollutants to be significant. I would also note that these distances are notably shorter than other areas proposed for rural productions of rural lifestyle zoning under PDP, particularly those located along the northern and southern sides of Kerikeri Inlet. I'll just bring that up. So these are the two stretches of rural lifestyle zone alongside the Kerikeri Inlet there. Our property, or Meridian Farm property, is here. So it's at the inner extent of those areas, I guess, as describe it. So in that context, the location of this site is relatively central, and I do not agree with Mr. Collins' assertion that the proposal is inconsistent with objectives Tran 03 and Tran 07. Regarding the Kerikeri-Waipapa Spatial Plan, the Section 42A report suggests that the proposed rezoning is inconsistent with the compact urban form objective of the plan. Under Section 74.2 of the RMA, territorial authorities are required to have regard to such management plans, not to give effect to them. The spatial plan is aspirational and long-term in nature, and its implementation relies on assumptions about market conditions and infrastructure upgrades that are unlikely to be realised within the operative life of the current district plan. In that regard, it's completely appropriate to take into account the provisions of the spatial plan and the overall goals set to be achieved over the next 30 years. However, the district plan has a life of 10 years. There are infrastructure issues in Kerikeri. There are obviously poor market conditions at the moment, which would restrict the feasibility of some, I guess, infill developments in town. In that regard, I think it would be short-sighted in a way, or council do need to consider a short term in terms of providing land that is able to be developed now with services on site, such as rural lifestyle zones and rural residential land. So yeah, council in the short term, council must consider practical measures to address housing demand, especially where land can be serviced independently of council infrastructure. So in conclusion, the required rezoning boundary appropriately responds to concerns raised in the Section 42A report by establishing a coherent and defensible boundary that aligns with the existing subdivision patterns and topography. The site's proximity to Kerikeri and Waipapa supports its suitability for rural lifestyle development without generating significant transport effects. While the Kerikeri-Waipapa Spatial Plan provides useful long-term guidance, the operative district plan must also address current housing needs and recognise the development of it by the relevance of these existing consents. Overall, the rezoning better reflects the established development character and provides a practical response. And the rural lifestyle zone should be adopted for Meridian Farm as a revised submission area on the plan. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a couple of questions for you, so I'll start off. Earlier today, council officers pointed us to a strategic direction objective. And that is strategic objective SD UFB 02. Now, do you have the plan?
I can bring it up.
So I'll just read you that strict. I mean, because your evidence is basically saying the compact urban form argument has come through the spatial plan, and you've got some question about how much regard we can give to that document. But this strategic objective says urban growth and development consolidated around existing reticulated networks within town, supporting a more compact urban form, portability, and providing for a mix of housing typologies. So that's pretty much the same message, and it's in the proposed plan about compact urban form. So we should be having regard to that, I would think.
Yep, have regard to it. I would argue that.
Well, the fact would be more than have regard to it. It's an objective of the plan, right? A strategic objective.
Yep. Yep, I would argue that this isn't directly urban form. I mean, urban form you'd argue is relates to urban zones in a way, residential, commercial zones. This is a rural lifestyle zone. I mean, there's plenty of rural lifestyle zones that aren't immediately.
Sure, but I think your evidence and certainly your summary statement was saying you need to allow for this form of development, housing development, because we shouldn't have much regard to the spatial plan. So we should have regard to the rural lifestyle zone as providing a housing choice. And what I'm putting to you is that I'm wondering whether that's running contrary to the strategic direction that says, you know, you should be focusing that around a compact urban form, around existing articulated networks and town centres. It seems to me the two of them potentially are in conflict.
Well, I mean, it's difficult to say that a rural lifestyle zone is in conflict with that objective when most rural lifestyle zones aren't located at contact with urban centres.
Well, isn't that the point though? It's to direct housing towards a compact urban form, as
totally
opposed
agree.
to a method of providing demand for housing that would otherwise go in urban areas.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it is appropriate to be concentrating development to areas that helps obviously infrastructure upgrades in the future and concentrate urban form in a particular location. There is an issue at the moment in terms of the ability for that infrastructure to cater for that development. So there is a short-term issue that needs to be addressed. And I mean, I agree when you read that policy or that objective on its own, it may be difficult to directly align with, but when considering the overall provisions of the district plan and the need to provide infrastructure, meeting certain capacities for developments, I think that there does need to be some provision for sites that can be serviced on site themselves without relying on that infrastructure that is at capacity.
So your evidence is because there are infrastructure constraints in urban areas, whether it's new urban greenfield areas or intensification from the new zones, we should be allowing rural living opportunities and rural lifestyle zone, rural lifestyle zone and rural residential until such time as those infrastructure issues are resolved. I think your evidence. I mean, we're going to be hearing from Council's infrastructure expert on that and the extent to which that's an issue. I just wanted to clarify that's where you're coming from. I mean, were you involved in all, or have you read the material around Hearing 9, which is for the rural zone?
Yes. So I have touched on that in my evidence. Yeah.
So it seems to me there are two strategies going on there. You've got a rural strategy that says, and correct me if I'm wrong, council officers, but the rural strategy that basically says there needs to be more protection of rural production areas and make them viable. And as a result, the threshold to subdivision has been lifted significantly to 40 hectares with some discretionary activity pathways. And then offsetting that loss of rural development potential, the council's added development, added new rural residential areas, added new rural lifestyle areas, and tweaked, I think it's the rural lifestyle zone, recommended changes to the rural lifestyle zone suburbs to allow more subdivision, smaller lots. And so you've got that rural strategy going on in rural residential zones and or what I call the rural living zones, providing that pressure valve release to offset the loss of development capacity in the rural production zone. But it seems to me now we're also getting evidence that says, well, these zones also need to be providing a pressure valve for infrastructure constrained urban development as well. And I'm just wondering whether we're asking these zones to do far too much.
Yeah, I mean, as
it
you
seems to me
say,
that rural residential and rural lifestyle is solving both rural production issues as well as urban supply issues.
so there's rural production issues. There's rural production issues in terms of wanting to retain that resource, and the reduction in the subdivision, minimum lot sizes, and everything has been a method that has been employed to address that. In the current coastal living zone under the current district plan, there has been a reduction in the minimum lot sizes. Those have been coastal living zones are being rezoned rural lifestyle, and there's quite a significant reduction in lot sizes there. I do grant that they are potentially going to be decreased under hearing 9 recommendations, potentially under subdivision recommendations going forward. But there, I think it is a short-term issue that needs to be addressed, and that can be addressed through just further zoning of rural lifestyle land. It seems like the district plan is being set up to encourage that compact urban form in residential areas, but I think from the outset of the district plan, there's going to be issues in terms of the ability for internal areas to service those areas. So, yeah, I mean, I think there is a need that needs to be addressed, and it appears, based on looking at the district plan as a whole, that there is a reliance on development in residential areas or in greenfield development that can't be serviced.
Yes, and have you read the economic assessment that's been done by Mr.
Yes.
McElrath, and he's firmly of the view that there's sufficient rural living land zoned to cater for the demand that I think we're talking about. I mean, have you got any experience? Oh, you're not an economist, so what is the economic basis that sort of
I mean, it's
supporting your position?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a significant area of land. It is, what is it, 50 hectares or something? No.
Before you answer that, we've got a lot of people making very similar arguments to you.
Yeah.
So we're not thinking of these as all one-offs. They're not. We're talking about numerous submitters.
Yeah.
All and to be fair, this is not a small area of land.
No, but
and it's going to be able to potentially, if we accept the recommendations to allow the rural lifestyle lot sizes, and there's going to be a lot of properties enabled if we rezone this land. So,
and we not understand
this plus every other submitter that's wanting either rural residential or rural lifestyle that we're having to balance up. So we're thinking cumulatively.
Well, I guess that touches on my earlier point that this particular site is a good site for it because it is one of the closest areas of rural lifestyle land to Kerikeri Central, as well as one.
And that it's adjoining.
It is not quite. I mean, it's adjoining the horticultural land to the south, and there is a rural lifestyle zone immediately across the road, so it does adjoin.
Yeah. So when you say you're relying on the land to the southeast to provide that consistency.
Yes, I guess so.
Because the land immediately to the south is horticulture,
more proximity than immediately adjacent.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Look, finally, we've got this question about defensible boundaries. Yes. And obviously, at the moment, we've got, I would think, a fairly, obvious and defendable boundary being the river. Yeah. So, obviously, one concern, and I think the council officers have raised this too, is that if we allow, and we accept that there is rural lifestyle on the other side of the river properties, but this really sort of starts off potentially a new march of this. I mean, how would council resist the same requests for similar developments? How does the river, if you accept the river as a good natural boundary, good defensible boundary, this sort of unravels it a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I guess I mean the front part of the site is that interface between rural lifestyle and rural production land has already been established. So there's already a boundary between lifestyle development and productive land in that location. There are up and down the back, as I touched on earlier, there are significant.
So how defendable do you think your boundary would be?
I mean, the existing development is already sort of established in the front part of the site, so it's
2 lots. You've got 2 lots already formed. I see that on the cadastral plan. You've got 2 other. So it's 4 lots.
In a straight line, sort of right up against that rural production boundary. So, yeah.
But I'll see if any other commissioners have some questions. Thank you.
My question was the same thing about the boundary being streamed. Is that ridge line like really significant in terms of the landscape, about why it's different to any other ridge line?
I mean, it's fine. And I mean, there are topographical changes in that location. I guess the area is quite undulating in a way. So I wouldn't say there's like a stream or anything in that location. There's a solid boundary, but it does sort of prove to be the logical location when we sort of look at it and grab it. So,
Yeah, yes, we're going to potentially find some time to look at this property. Would you, I don't know whether we need to physically travel around it, but certainly we would like to observe it. Could you recommend any places for us to go to in order to understand?
Well, I mean, when you get there, you'll see there's a big driveway currently being built. So you'll be able to drive, I believe. Oh, sorry. So it comes in here and then goes. Oh, sorry. Comes in here, goes around here. And it does go all the way down to here.
Okay, would we be able to access that driveway?
Yes, you would.
Nobody will bring out a firearm and threaten us.
No, no.
There won't be any wild
Maybe
animals
it's not
chasing
just-
after us.
I wonder, just let me know, maybe I can.
Well, it would be.
It is a operating farm, right?
It's a pretty busy day now, isn't it?
Wednesday afternoon is.
Wednesday afternoon, we have some time, don't we?
Yes.
Yes, it'll be Wednesday afternoon. If you were to let your client know that we might, a bunch of
Late
shifty,
afternoon.
late after, a bunch of shifty looking characters might show up. In inappropriate footwear. Have a look at your property.
One of us may be armed for self-defense.
Yeah, I went out there, it was last week, and there was a fence on the side, and there's quite a few landowners in there, so I'll just.
Yeah. Like I say, I don't think we really need to walk around the property. We just really want to get an understanding of its context, maybe have a look at where the river is, and how and maybe the northern boundary, which seems to be where your driveway is. So that would be giving us some some assistance there.
And can you tell us where the closest tractor is? Because we want to see our Commissioner Ford's vehicle. My two questions relate to the land use class. You know what it is?
Class, I think it's not highly productive land, it was class.
Yeah, that was
four
our
to
class.
six.
Okay. And the land directly across in the bottom right-hand corner there, directly across the Redcliffe Road. What's that zoning under the?
It's rural lifestyle there.
That's rural lifestyle. So directly opposite. So the river isn't the boundary of that.
No.
The road is as you head uphill. Okay. And under the transport part of it, how many single lane bridges are affected? I can tell you.
I went out there last week, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, there's one on Landing
Very,
Road.
very clear with your answer here because he's the road.
Yeah, you got one right at the bottom there, one right at the bottom of the site on Redcliffs, and there's one if you go in Kapiro Landing Road. There's another one there.
Mr. Collins is rebuttal evidence that agree that transport effects would be modest for the increase in development, that feasible development that could be seen through this site. So, yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I suppose the question that comes out of the questions as such, I mean, where does it stop, this going on with rezoning? I mean, we've had a number of people coming along, mainly from survey background and the like. So we've got this existing consent from council. And now we want to rationalise that further by actually having the area rezoned, and it's on the basis that there's other consents in that particular locality justifies it then being rezoned. Where does it stop? Because then you're getting an incremental situation, which is what I would imagine we're trying to stop now, rather than just letting it continue as it has for many years in Kerikeri.
Yeah, I mean, the consented development on the site, it's not the only better that's justifying the zoning here. There are other factors that sort of make it a good site for rural lifestyle zoning. It is a relevant factor. I mean, the character change that happens on land when it is subdivided into lots of this size sort of changes the character of that particular area. So, I mean, there's sort of a market difference between the rural lifestyle lots on this particular zone and then the rural production land to the north. So I think there is a clear sort of change there. The incremental creep of this type of development is that just so I understand that, would that be through like a non-complying subdivision of the neighbouring site and they're using the proximity to the rural lifestyle land to justify that? Is that the,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, the rural production zone provisions are strict if you're not complying with the subdivision rules. So, I mean, you'd have to have a pretty good unique circumstance to justify that. In that
Well,
case.
you guys managed to do that, obviously, at some stage.
Well, within reason. I mean, this would be if someone came to me and wanted to subdivide that site under the current subdivision rules or proposed subdivision rules, I mean, I think it would be pretty tough to justify just with those strict policies. I mean, there's avoidance policies in there protecting rural land. So, yeah.
It just seems to me that if you look to that land to the north of the subject site, what is there to stop that land being sought for rezoning on the basis of the land to your client's land has been rezoned, so why shouldn't we be rezoned?
Well, I mean, the landowners to the north actually did put in a submission as well. They're in the north hearing of the hearing, but I mean, there is, yeah, I just keep going back to this established interface between the existing rural lifestyle land and the rural production land. So, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
One more question for
Yes.
just arising out of some of the other questions. The land currently is, you said the LBC class was 4.
Yeah, from memory, 4. Yeah.
LBC class 4 is still productive. It's not highly productive. I mean, you won't grow kiwi fruit there, or maybe you struggle. But LBC 4 is still productive rural land, isn't it? And
it can be certain classes of class 4. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, are there any constraints on that property that really do inhibit its production value for agriculture?
So when you go to the site, you'll notice that there are areas where slopes are quite steep in certain locations. So that does inhibit, I guess, the moisture holding capabilities of the soils. So it does get quite dry. This is according to the landowner. There's also, when you go there, you'll notice that there are quite a few large rocks spread out by the way of the plant. So those are sort of 2 characteristics, I guess, that jump to mind in terms of the ability for the land to be considered productive in a way.
Yeah, sure. So it would still be available for a range of agricultural activities, dry stock.
Oh, I mean, of course, yeah. Any land would be, I guess.
It's still productive, correct?
Yeah, it's an operating farm.
Yeah, it's an operating farm.
Yeah, in conjunction with land.
Plenty of operating farms have existing land on them. So.
Yeah, I guess it's. I did address this in my evidence. It is quite noticeable when you go there. So I think you'll notice on Wednesday that it is quite sort of steep and encumbered by rocks and quite difficult to farm in a way. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
That's right.
Oh, sorry. Clarification question.
Clarification question. That's right. In my 42A report, I relied on the second-hand original evidence for the plan-enabled capacity that would occur as a result of the rezoning.
Yes.
So based on the 68 hectares originally asked for, the plan-enabled capacity was somewhere between 19 sites controlled and 33 sites. If the controlled minimum lot size is reduced to 2 hectares. If it's dropped to 50 hectares, which is the new area, what does that do in terms of the plan-enabled capacity? Because it's not a matter, in my view, of just matching up the zone to what is already there. There is a significant subdivision yield that would come with that. I'm just trying to understand what.
So that's the plan-enabled capacity if it were lifestyle.
If it were a lifestyle.
Yeah. So, are you able to answer that question?
I did address that in my rebuttal.
Is there any rebuttal?
Is it in the okay?
No, hang on. Let's find it.
Just
So
to
the
see.
plan-enabled capacity of the revised 50.3283 hectare area of land to be rezoned would be 12 sites under the controlled activity minimum lot size and 25 sites under the discretionary minimum lot size. And that's based on the notified.
Thank you.
And you might have regard to that in your reply. Right. Okay. I think we're at the end of that. Oh, sorry. Wait, 1 minute.
One
One question, I know that site, the amount of sites would be further restricted by both contour and on-site sewage capability.
Yeah, so I did address that in my, I think it was my original evidence that the total plan enabled capacity may not in reality be able to be realised when we come to subdivide sites. So when whoever comes to subdivide sites, so yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're now moving on to the Musson Family Trust.
Musson Family Trust.
Now, let's just remind us where Punghora. So that's the one right up in Punghora, isn't it?
It's right.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so put it up on the screen. So just for contextual purposes, the green area is the settlement zone currently proposed by the proposed district plan. This area here is the proposed settlement zone proposed by the submission. This land is currently proposed to be rural lifestyle and is currently zoned coastal living under the operative district plan. So let's start the summary. This submission seeks to rezone a number of titles on both sides of Kaikohe Headsborough from rural lifestyle to settlement zone. The purpose of this request is to better reflect the existing land use and development pattern, respond to local housing needs, and align with the strategic direction of the proposed district plan. Firstly, council suggests that the area is more consistent with the rural lifestyle zone. The area is currently zoned coastal living under the operative plan and rural lifestyle under the proposed. However, the existing lot sizes and development character are more consistent with the settlement zone provisions. Of the 21 titles, 20 are already smaller than the discretionary 2 hectare minimum anticipated by the rural lifestyle zone, ranging from 4,000 to 1 hectare. These lots are already developed for use and used for lifestyle and residential purposes. Also, it is important to compare the development potential enabled under the operative plan with what is proposed under the new plan. So under the operative plan, the coastal living zone allows for lots as small as 5,000 metres squared as a discretionary activity, 8,000 metres squared as a restricted discretionary activity. This aligns more closely with the settlement zone provisions in the proposed plan, which provide more for 4,000 metres squared lots as a controlled activity, 1,500 metres squared lots as a discretionary activity. In contrast, the rural lifestyle zone provides for 4 hectare lots as a controlled activity and 2 hectare lots as a discretionary activity. Even if the Hearing 9 recommendation to reduce the minimum lot sizes in the rural lifestyle zone is adopted, the rezoning would still represent a down zone relative to the operative plan. Also in the section reporting to our report, council raised concerns about natural hazards and geotechnical suitability. In this case, any identified flood hazards are limited to low-lying land adjacent to existing drains. Future development can be directed to hazard-free locations, and site-specific hazard assessments will be provided or will be required at subdivision or building consent stage. The natural hazard overlay provisions of the proposed plan will continue to apply regardless of zoning, ensuring that risks are identified and managed through future consenting processes. Engineering investigations are best undertaken at the development stage when the nature of the activity is known. This is standard practice and avoids unnecessary duplication of costs. Council argues that there is no need for additional settlement zone land in the area. However, letters from local agents confirmed at the time of writing my original evidence confirmed that only 5 vacant sections were available in the Pukenui area at the time of writing, with strong demand from both permanent and seasonal residents. Council has proposed to address this this demand by proposing to rezone land along Waterfront Road in Hobart or in Pukenui. Investigations or high-level investigations have shown this land is constrained by potential wetlands, archaeological sites, roading limitations, and potentially hazardous hail activities as well. That hail activity I addressed in my rebuttal evidence is towing business, and it also appears there's some kind of storing of vehicles or scrap metalling going on as well. So these constraints reduce the effective yield of the notified settlement zone land, enforcing the need to rezone less constrained serviceable land like the Musson submission area. So turning to traffic effects, which what appears to be one of the main concerns, council agrees that an upgrade to the State Highway 1 Okorihi Road intersection may be required at development stage. I acknowledge Mr. Collins' rebuttal evidence once again circulated on 25th of September, which has concluded based on his initial assessment that right turn treatment would be required. And this aligns with my initial comments that some kind of upgraded works would be triggered at some stage. So Mr. Collins goes on to outline his concern, and I quote that it is difficult to argue that individual small-scale subdivisions, so say smaller residential lifestyle blocks through here, would trigger the need for, I'll put it. It's difficult to argue that individual small-scale subdivision would create such an effect that the State Highway 1 Okorihi Road intersection that would reasonably warrant the applicant to undertake an upgrade of the intersection. However, the cumulative effect of multiple small-scale subdivisions are likely to trigger the requirement for, at a minimum, a right turn lane. This would either go unaddressed or require NZTA to fund the upgrade. I disagree with the assertion that this would be difficult to address at development stage and that it would go unaddressed. It would effectively be first in, first served. At some point, the cumulative effects of the development along Okorihi Road will tip the balance and trigger the need for upgrading of the intersection. It is my opinion that this is best dealt with at resource consent stage rather than implementing it into a district plan as a rule. At the end of the day, I guess NZTA are going to need to be consulted with as part of any future subdivision consent. So I don't agree that it would just be left up to the NZTA to upgrade the intersection. The effects of any development along that road would be considered on at development stage. My rebuttal evidence proposed a matter of control, which would provide council with confidence that this assessment would indeed be undertaken as part of the application to consent. Landowners would therefore be obliged to consider effects, whether they are cumulative or not, of their subdivision, whether they would trigger the need for upgrades. This is no different to the current situation for a significant number of intersections with state highways worldwide, countrywide, sorry, not worldwide. This assessment takes place at development stage, and it is the developer who will bear the cost. So in conclusion, the proposed rezoning better reflects the existing lot sizes, development character, and historical zoning under the operative plan. Concerns about natural hazards, infrastructure, and traffic effects can be appropriately managed at the subdivision stage through standard consenting processes. Overall, the submission presents a practical and responsive planning solution for a growing coastal community. So the settlement zone should be adopted for the family, Muslim Family Trust as per the submission area shown on the screen.
Yeah, I think I've got a number of questions. So, similar question around natural boundaries.
Yes.
So the yellow is the settlement zone that's where it currently or previously stopped. So you're proposing to extend that on the other side, which includes the smaller lots that were created under the operative plan coastal living zone.
Correct. Yes.
So your argument here is that essentially you're being downzoned.
Yes.
Because of the subdivision potential.
Yeah. So currently there is they are zone coastal living. The current the coastal living or the proposed rural lifestyle zone boundary is there. So I guess that boundary between those two zonings has been followed for this proposed zoning. So it's I guess it's been proposed to reflect what the district plan currently proposes between rural production zone and rural lifestyle zone.
And you talk about the demand
Yes.
within the area. I'm familiar with the area because I live further north there and represent that area as an elected member. And I'm also aware of the significant increase in horticulture within that locality and the demand for housing. The evidence it just talks about letters, but I can't see that as any evidence, but you've just made reference here letters from local agents confirmed at the time.
Yeah, so that was
I'm just looking
provided
for that,
as
I can see 5 pages.
I can point you to that. Hang on. That's provided as part of my original evidence.
Not, okay. Must have.
I haven't attached it to the summary, but it
No,
was provided as part of my, there's attachment 2 of my original evidence.
okay, it's not attached on this submission link here.
Oh,
Well, on the
So-
timetable, it might be just a website.
Okay, so did you want to speak about that in terms of the permanent seasonal demand? I mean, it's not
yeah, well, yeah.
expert evidence, but evidence.
Yeah, I guess what the letters show from real estate is that there is a demand for these sections. The real estate agents at the time of writing the evidence were adamant that there was a shortfall, and they confirmed that at that time of writing there was only 5 vacant sections available in the whole area. And there is an obvious need for housing in the area. There are, yeah, as you say, seasonal workers, and there's also a growing community there. So that need has been, council have tried to address that need through the rezoning of land on Waterfront Road, which I can show you. Is this land through here? So yeah, I mean, based on a review of sort of on available mapping and everything, it seems to me that there are some significant constraints with this land that may affect the ability for it to be fully developed. The first is what I touched on earlier with the hail activity. So as you can see, there's quite a significant sort of towing business of some sorts going on here. Bradley's P&T towing, and based on experience, that would be classified as a hail activity under the National Environmental Standard for soil contamination. So it would, to develop that land, there would be some serious sort of, firstly, investigations from soil expert needed to take place, and then secondly, there could be quite significant remedial works required, or there could be areas excluded from development. So there's also quite a few wetlands in the area. There's also on Waterfront Road, I'm sure you're familiar, it's sealed up to a point. And then it is unsealed, and there are some erosion. There is some erosion happening alongside the road, so that area or that roading network through there is a little bit constrained, and it would require significant upgrades to access that land, especially considering the number of houses that could potentially be established through here. There's also significant area of archaeological sites, or concentration of archaeological sites along Waterfront Road there. And when you compare that to the Muslim Family Trust submission area, there's not as many. So that's why I generally think that the Muslim Family Trust land would be appropriate for to be included in the settlement zone to address those seasonal and permanent resident housing demands of the area.
So I did have a question about the rezoning, because when the plan was notified, it wasn't for this zone, and there's a number of properties that are proposed to be rezoned. Are the other landowners aware that you're asking for all those? I don't know, there's about 20 of them to be rezoned. Is there like?
I mean, we haven't undertaken any additional consultation other than what's required in the through the statutory process, I guess. I believe the landowner has talked to some of his neighbours off the record, but I can't put that forward as evidence, obviously. So, there weren't any further submissions received through the plan change process. So, yeah, we have no reason to believe there's any objections to the area. Yeah, the rezone. So.
you've talked about, you've said multiple times, do you think there's demand here, and that you've talked to local real estate agents, but the council took a housing and business assessment. Have you had regard to that? And
Yeah, of course.
Referred to this part of the district, and my understanding was that it came to the conclusion that demand was quite low.
Yeah, I guess we sort of addressed that by referring to the land that has proposed to be rezoned in post district plan, and I mean there are challenges there with developing that land, so yeah, I think it would be appropriate to include some.
And would it be fair to say that the council's recognised, that there is demand there, and that it's come up with this zoning to realise that demand? But I think what you're saying is that it's a different type of demand, or because it's rural lifestyle, and you've got the recommendations for rural lifestyle to go down to 1 to 2 hectares, that type. So they're reasonably, small sites. I was wondering why that can't achieve the same, or similar outcomes.
Well, I mean, under the current plan, the zone, the coastal living zone allows for subdivision down to 5,000 or 8,000 meters squared.
And what does settlement allow it to?
It's 4,000 as a control activity and 1,500 as a.
Just 3,000 of the control activity.
3,000. Okay. So the settlement zone's a settlement zone's a rural zone, but sort of gets applied to settlements.
Yeah.
That's probably the most enabling of all the rural zones.
Yeah. I guess
Anything lower than that, you need to be reticulate. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't be able to service a house and everything on site to less than maybe 2,000 meters squared.
Well, I suppose what we're going to have to wrestle with is the demand that comes through the HBA to us, and the demand that you think is there. I thought it was a wasp, and that had me a bit nervous. It was just a very big fly.
It's probably followed me in.
Okay, so I was just going to say, it seems that the council's trying to recognise that there is some demand. I suspect it's following its HBA in that regard, but also too is that I think the additional subdivision allowance has followed the HBA again. That came out of hearing 9, 1 to 3. So what we're wrestling with is the demand really at settlement level, or is it at lifestyle zone?
Well, yeah. I mean,
and I'm just wondering. I mean, where's
I see what you're saying.
Where's the expert evidence that backs up your claim?
Yeah.
Put it bluntly like that.
Yeah. I mean, they've already got sites that are sort of subdivided down to the current coastal living zone.
I mean, one of your arguments seems to be that, this is what the operative plan did, and you've taken something away. But this is a complete review of the plan.
Yeah.
And so,
I guess the argument is that
we're not bound by the zoning convention of the previous instrument. There are, there's a rethink of how you going to do it, and there are other evidence and that's behind those. So.
Yeah, I guess as put forward in my evidence that there is a demand, and the real estate agents have identified that. The land that is proposed to be rezoned is constrained, so there does need to be some thought put into providing additional land in the area to meet that demand. There's going to be a significant amount of works required to seal Waterfront Road to get all the way down to the end to service that land. There's also, as I mentioned, hail activity and all sorts of things going on that would significantly constrain the ability for that land to be developed. There's also wetlands on this side here, which would limit that land's ability to develop as well to the full extent, perhaps anticipated by the APA report. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it appears that land is constrained, and there does need to be some additional land zoned in the area to address that. Yeah.
And it's finally, almost finally. Have you considered the other rural zone option? You've gone to settlement. What about, have you looked at rural residential? I mean, those lot sizes.
Yeah.
Similar.
Well, I mean, settlement was proposed because it had adjoined another settlement zone, so in the interest of being consistent, that was why it was proposed. But I mean, the submitter would be open for other options.
And finally, when I was reading your evidence, you referred to its land use capacity in the statement. LEC system, not highly productive, but that's not really relevant.
No,
Because it's already
no.
it's already zoned for a non-productive zone.
Yeah,
So
yes.
LEC classification is not relevant. It's just you're obviously just highlighting that.
I think it was just for contextual purposes,
Yeah.
just being highlighted.
I thought that was the case. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I think perhaps I'm recalling a bit, but perhaps there's obviously horticultural activities in the area, so productive soils are in the area, so perhaps it was being highlighted to highlight that this site doesn't.
But that's literally off the table.
Yeah, because it only applies to rural production zones.
Okay, no, great. Any other questions, commissioners? Any clarification questions, officers? Great, well, thank you. Thank you for your presentations and your evidence, your rebuttal, answers to our questions. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get all the way up to Hilda. It might not be that all the panel gets there, but maybe I might. So someone on the side.
Yeah. That should all mostly be visible from the road.
I was about to say, using both Kaikohe's Road and the State Highway, they're reasonably good places to observe it.
Yeah.
Probably want to have a look at Waterfront Road too, I suppose.
I think it'd be a good idea because you will see the road constructs down the most part. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, great. Well, thank you.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have just a 2-minute break. And Mr. Ross. Are you Mr. Ross? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, after Mr. Hannon packs up, you can come and sit up.
We're just going to do a quick switcheroo. And,
Oh, okay. Are you
happy,
okay? So you're yielding your time to Ms.
Fender.
Bender?
Yeah.
Oh, that's there's a lot of letters in there. Bender. Good afternoon, Ms. Bender.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Yes, welcome. We've got your statement here.
Okay,
You're welcome to read it to us or summarise it. We're
I
in your
just
hands.
might start,
You may stay seated.
oh yeah, I want to start acknowledge the Marae.
Oh, yes, okay.
And Marae Pakagunu. And I want to start with the Pakatoki, which is Kanukuluku, Kanikanike, Kakitekweke Tai, Ote Onurua Toge, Mehemea Pipiparawa, Ekorona, Kakatupipai, Kakatupipai. And it means in English, the sea comes and the sea goes, and the glitter on the horizon, which the reflection on the water reminds me of the feathers of the shining cuckoo, and peace comes over me and peace comes over me. I get a feeling of peace. So on that start, I have something different to brighten up the day. I got this submission, and I'm sorry, it's a bit same old. I asked for rezoning of, we are in Kaikohe at Okorihi Road, which is when you come from the hospital or from the college, just a walkway up the hill, all normal then 8, and you come up to the substation. There's a substation, and that is the land there. And there's already residential. There's already one section 3 for an access to the land, which is a 50 zone. And if you open up the page, and the second page is the outline of the land. As you come up, and the houses are in the purple area. So that's the area we would like to have rezoned if possible, because of the plan. Yeah. And on the last page we have the blue area, which indicates the portable water supply, and also the storage network surrounded the road. The reason for the application is that we need more affordable land, and for the rezoning of the land, 97 of the rural from rural to residential will have minimal adverse environmental effect due to location within the existing urban boundaries of Kaikohe. The land directly adjoins to other residential properties and is well served by established infrastructure, including access to mains water, wastewater system, and electricity. The new access road, which was originally planned when the surrounding residential properties were developed, will connect the land to the main road, which is the 50 zone, which I just mentioned. This main road is part of a 50 zone, that's the one. The access road will provide good visibility and for vehicles turning in and out, ensuring safe entry and exit from the site. The reason, so this is located on a hillside above Kaikohe, and the land is located at a hillside outside of the flood plains, and to the tsunami hazard zone, and development here will not improve exposure to natural hazard, and instead support the council's objective to direct growth and safe resilient locations. The site is already within the reach of the main water, wastewater, and electricity network, I have to already mention, and the housing supply and community benefits. The proposal for the land to be subdivided into affordable residential sections of this owner housing. This will directly contribute to addressing the accrued housing shortage in Kaikohe, particularly for smaller and more affordable homes. By providing new housing in well-located and served areas, the development will strengthen the social and economic fabric of the community. Yeah. I think that's about it.
It's on the page.
I'm trying to bring it up, it's not bringing up.
I just want to clarify,
Yeah,
the plan has the land zoned rural residential,
that's
and
correct.
you want to go to general residential,
It is
urban
for
residential.
a part surrounding the existing residential,
Yes,
because if you look at, it's a bit not very good visible,
yes,
but if you go up to the corner of the road, there's 97 Okorihi Road, there's one section in 4,000 square meters,
yes.
and the land itself, the structure of the soil is very compact, white, sandy stuff, which you have to almost to put a post in, you have to almost explode it to get it in, and the water doesn't, the soil doesn't saturate it in winter, so it doesn't run off. So when you walk through the soil, you get stuck, or you get, like you have to move with gumboot. So it's not, how can I say, if you cut all that land in 4,000 square meter blocks, which is the current situation, I find it's a waste of land, which is valuable up to the top of the hill for other people to have a safe place to stay. Just if if the water rises or whatever. So I don't think it should be cut up in bigger blocks. It should be cut up in smaller, affordable places. I got Lana who wants to come home and want to stay up there and live in buses and all that sort of thing. Then they should have a house. Come home.
The main question I had is, thank you for the maps to
Yeah.
show the services. Okorihi Road is really great because it's a hill and it's not part of the flats that
No,
a lot of Kaikohe is on flood zone.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But in terms of the reticulation of sewage and water
Yeah.
to your site, the rest of the hill is all zoned or proposed to be zoned rural residential as well. So I guess why your site and why not the whole hill, or
well,
essentially looking at we
well-
talked about that, the natural boundaries.
if you want to do the whole hill, yeah, but I just, the people should be able to pay the rates afterwards. If you do the whole lot, it's going to be more costly. So why not start small and have a, I don't know how much sewage you got, how much, I cannot do a whole lot. That's, that costs millions.
One of our other submitters that we'll be hearing from is the engineer for the council for services.
Yeah,
And we'll be asking him similar questions about our capacity of our free waters. But in terms of what you've presented there, those were my main questions about site suitability, because it's really reliant on the connection to those services.
I
order to
understand
get the
that
smaller
they're
lot
limited, in Kaikohe, isn't it? I don't know. The services, for sewer and for black water, for sewer network and fresh water. Fresh water shouldn't be a problem, but hopefully, but the sewer might be a problem. And that's why I'm saying, hey, why don't you just do a part, or why don't you just apply for a part of the place, not the whole lot? I mean, you could do the whole lot. Yeah. Okay.
We'll be asking similar questions about capacity to the council engineer.
Yeah. for sure. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Yeah.
No, I don't have a question. I like the concept, but we'll have a talk about it.
Do you know how the existing residential houses, how they come to be developed in the collection of what group of houses there at the current time?
How they be informed?
Yeah,
It must have been from that outlook because as you look at the first picture, in red, it's the outline of the place. And there was already at the time of the when they did that, that was a different council. That was council or something.
Yeah, Kaikohe Borough probably, or
Yeah, and
maybe Monterey.
they left this T3 as an exit, which is between the houses with the big house.
Yeah.
And that's a 50 zone, so that's the only. The other zone is the 100 zone on the other side. So when you come up the hill where the houses are, there's a free section as an access.
so is there a continuity of housing going up the hill, or is it?
Yeah, there's no.
You can see that on the right hand.
No, there's that's Kaikohe, the greenery there before the houses. That's belongs to Kaikohe. I think it's one. Not too sure. Kaikohe Council. No, not. I think it's gone back to the EU. And these are just the houses all the way go up there. They're all 1,000 or 1,200 square meter sections. Yeah, and then it just stops.
You say in your statement that you're looking at creating affordable residential sections.
That's right. Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, if the subdivision wouldn't be $60,000, but 2,000 is whatever 20, 30 years ago.
The council should charge you no fees for subdivision, perhaps.
I
Maybe the council could charge you no fee for processing.
don't know. I just know that that Whanau in Auckland want to come home and they want to have their dream of having their own house, and that's the possibility.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
I haven't got any further questions for you, so
Yeah.
thank you very much. You put quite a bit of effort into putting this together.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for preparing and
Thank you,
presenting that.
Yeah, that's I'm just not a professional.
Yeah,
But I
brilliant.
You've done very well.
No, you've done very well. So thank you very much. And thank you for making all the effort to come down here
Yeah.
to present to us.
I think it's important that we have affordable houses. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so who's going to be going next?
Looks like you have an appointment.
Oh, right, okay. So you're being very accommodating, Mr. Ross.
I'm very grateful. He said he's a local and he's happy to listen to what's happening.
Sorry, apologies. I'm just going to leave my seat here. I just declared my conflict. It's
Does he look like me? Everyone got the I think this morning or not?
No, so have you got copies of it? I've just saved it, so I could put it on the screen, or if you've got copies, that would be easier.
I got 1, 2. That's 1A3, that's 1A2, that's another one. 1A, there's 1, 2, 3. 2.
It's only a pre-circular.
That's 1. Sorry, I put
It's a pre-circular.
the situation.
It's not site specific to a particular area, it's right at the beginning, and one of the generic sections of it.
Searching for keyword.
Maybe we just do. I'll try and find it. When it's, so am I right? I've got two, it might be in this. Okay, L3. Or, oh no, it'll be LJ. Yep. No, sorry, I'll have to find it. These guys. It's after all of the opt-ins. Apologies for that.
That's all right.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm just gonna message you guys with.
I want to read them in the police.
Yeah, sorry, I will find it. It's, I'm almost here.
It's in the 42-hour report somewhere.
Yeah. I think it's after the ones that were supported and after errors. After the request for operative district plan zone. Oh. All right, I have to find it now.
That's all right. Perhaps you could let us know.
Oh, okay.
Hal, good afternoon.
Sorry.
We've got your material here. You're entitled to read it out to us and take us through it however you wish.
Yeah, my name's Fiona King. Thank you guys and the staff for making this time for me today. It's always a trip down south is always lawyers, Fonterra, council, and then back home again. So apologies for pushing everything in. Basically, you know, I'm a partially retired farmer. I'm not sure if I can fully retire out of anything, but I'm trying. And in the process of succession planning with my children, I'm very deep in horticulture, and I've had to move off the farm to a smaller town of Awanui. And this is because you have your own home on the farm, and if you can't cut your house off and you want to sell the farm, well, then you have to move. I've lived rurally all my life on an isolated island, Stewart Island, for 15 years, and in the far north, and care deeply about our rural communities and our rural communities and the well-being of farmers and farming families. It's not easy to be a farmer these days. The cost of farming has increased hugely, and the hardest part of all has been the huge increase in regulations, both from councils and central government. We work hard to try and make a living, and we shouldn't have to be specialists in all this planning and finances to make it happen, or to however that's what it feels like now. You have to have some form of administration now, instead of just being on the farm, to actually keep up with the rules. But I'm here today to tell you about utilising existing infrastructure. We have property down Wireless Road, on both sides of Wireless Road, but I'm mainly talking about the top end of Wireless Road to the Bell Road intersection. The regional policy statement says FNDC needs to make effective use of the existing infrastructure. And I believe that 70% of the district is zoned general rule. And to grow our town, we need to make use of the infrastructure, and this requires some zoning changes. More rural or urban or rural, it doesn't actually have to be residential, or just rural zones, doesn't have to be residential zones, need to be introduced. My example to you is Wireless Road. And that's number 1A. Wireless Road comes off the State Highway 1 opposite the Tri-Board Mill. The Wireless Road characteristics has already changed from an rural environment, to include schools, play centres, bus depots for tourists and schools, welding businesses, storage sheds, butchers. Wireless Road is also the main top energy distribution line from the solar farm off Gills Road, and possible town water, potable or non-potable, from the bores at Sweetwater or the Tri-Board Mill. All of this being industrial, commercial, or for urban use. And you could say light industrial rather than, heavy industrial when you have across the road the tri-board mill and Top Energy and roading firms, etc. Wireless Road and the beginning of Bells Road all have town services available. They have town water, sewage systems, and the roads are tar sealed. We have some street lighting, and it is 60 k's at the intersection of Wireless Road and State Highway 1 and 30 k limit down Wireless Road past the school. The water and sewage schemes do actually continue past Wireless Road to approximately 1 kilometre down the State Highway towards Awanui. And I'm only making that point that the services for Kaikohe have been in the ground for at least 18 years. So that's why I'm requesting that change be considered to urban or light industrial rather than rural production. We do own the land in the rural production zone, and we've slowly been built out by consents, and it's just by people applying to the council for consents. And we have a lot of residential down that road as well. And if you see on 1A, hopefully you can read it, where I've put crosses, those are areas that could be considered changes, because on 1B, it shows you where the commercial zones are and where the rural production zone is. But unfortunately, there seems to be, there's no lead out from commercial or residential into rural living or into rural production. It just seems to go one side of the road, you can have the commercial business, and the other side is rural production. But in rural production, we've got that many houses that have been there for quite a few years, like 30, 40 years, and increased development down Wireless Road that's happened in the last 10, 15 years. And yet that's still all rural production. So I'm asking for those zones to be re-looked at, either into some form of urban, whether it's rural living or whether it's light industrial, because it's that close to town now. It's actually part of town where most of the town is moving north, not moving south. And I'm asking for that to be considered. And 1C is just showing you the same sort of thing, and the zoning in 1D is showing you the rural production zones and how it just goes from commercial straight to rural production, yet the town's moving that way. And when it comes to the Awanui Township, I haven't got the map here, from the bridge on State Highway 1, which is not a floodplain, the area should be rezoned from rural production to urban or light industrial. It has the same services of town sewage, footpath, street lighting. It has a school, and it's in a 50 k zone limit. If for some reason one side of the road has not been zoned, rural living, it just goes from residential straight into rural production again. I haven't got the other one. And then into Kaikohe, into the Kaikohe map, and you'll see the maps 3 to 3C. This is the residential boundaries. I haven't got my map to refer to, sorry. And they have been limiting development, and they need a change or to be extended, as in residential extension or residential into rural living. Development has increased into the rural production zones already. You can see behind the Kōrai Intermediate, Taupata Place or Koko Street that come off the North Road, what was zoned rural production is where housing is has been developing. And unfortunately, this area puts pressure on the rural land drainage for their stormwater, having open drains around housing, but this is apparently allowed using the rural production rules when applying for a resource consent for residential housing. And it's either one or the other, and should not be able to use both zoning when developing residential housing. Hence, that area there should be changed into residential zoning or some rural living around there. And this is one of the reasons why I asked and have asked the committee before that the land drainage drains be recorded as maps within the district plan to give effect to this type of development that's happening, because there's been no consideration for the drain that these developments have added to and their outlets. In particular, in this particular here, which is called the Matthews outlet, it actually drains into the Awanui River. When the Awanui River floodgates are full, the water goes nowhere. So this area here, more water that these developments put into the network has to go somewhere, and it's either flooding in paddocks or flooding around houses. And that's why it's important that the drain, the catchment within these developments actually gets considered. May need that the drain needs to be wider, needs to be increased. Attenuation ponds may need to be developed to contain the water that's coming through. But at the moment, it's quite difficult in that area to actually be able to continue to develop houses around open drains, and a hazard and a high risk for those children in those in that housing development that's down there. But nothing wrong with the housing development. It's a good thing. It's a positive thing for Kaikohe. But I am very concerned, just like the lady before me, is that the movement from residential zone immediately into rural production zone is causing a lot of resource consents to be applied for, and a lot of what do you call it? Not good planning for laying out the township. That's all I've got to say.
Okay, thank you very much. You've again put in quite a bit of effort to put this package together. I'll see if our commissioner has got some questions, please.
Yeah, just on that plan you've got of Awanui,
Yeah.
from the district plan, you've got 4 sites notated with the cross. Those are the ones you're seeking to be rezoned. Is that correct? Yeah, you've got a cross there and it says in the key should be rural living or residential as it serves by footpaths, street lighting, etc.
Is it on the left-hand side, and it's just where the houses go?
Yeah, there's two here,
Yeah.
and there's another 2 down here as well.
That's because there's already houses out that on the State Highway 10.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's part of the question. That is there housing already on all of those sites, or
No.
no?
The one across the bridge there, that's just rural production and no houses there.
Right.
And it goes into a small street called Sotheby Street.
That's correct. Yeah.
And then it goes into the school.
Yeah. Okay. That's the school.
And
Yeah.
I was only mentioning, one side of the road's residential, one side, the other side of the road's rural production, when they're all in that township. And heading out on State Highway 10, what I've showed you there's already houses existing.
Yeah. Yeah. So your case for those is because there's houses on them already.
Yes.
Yeah. And here basically it's adjacent to the school, and
Yes.
and there's
All
other
the
houses.
services are there, with the school.
Yeah.
And the footpaths available. The kids walk from the school to the town.
Right.
It's out of the flood zone.
Yes.
Um,
Okay. No, that's
what I
clear.
think would to be considered.
Thanks.
Okay.
Just on that same plan that you've provided, and you've said here should be zoned rural, there should be rural living or residential, but there's no rural living zone. Are you mean the rural lifestyle?
Sorry.
Rural lifestyle.
Yeah. Rural living, old rural living.
Yeah, I think it might be. So I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of where you think there possibly should be some urban zoning, I think you've talked about light industrial. Have you and you say they're all serviced?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea about whether there is capacity in the systems to serve? I mean, there might be a pipe there. Have you got any evidence to, for us on whether there's capacity?
Well, put it this way, on the farm, we've put a house there and there's no questions about connecting.
Right. Okay.
That's the Wireless Road area.
Right.
Yeah. It's called, I think it's called the Wireless Road system. It's a system where you have your own septic tank that you pay for the power of, and it actually just goes down a 40 mil line on the road.
And what about the sort of light industrial that you were talking about?
I'm saying light industrial because there's people down that road now that have a welding business. So they have a house and then a big shed. That's their welding business. Another one has storage sheds, like a section with a whole lot of storage units on it. There's a small butcher's at the corner, which is, like a shed where, and they cut up meat and sell meat from there.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I'll comment stuff. So really what you're suggesting is, which we talked about earlier this morning, creating some more compact urban form because there's infrastructure available, which is town water sewer. And it's already happening. The development's happening now under a bit more of a unplanned process under the current rural production zone. So I'm not sure how we address that, but we'll talk about it. And then the other thing
you also have the power because the Top Energy, which is across the road, has the main line down there now, and they've just put new power in 3-phase and that all the way down the road.
So the services are there. And the other one, land drainage. Now, this came up in one of the earlier hearings, you'll recall, Chair, relating to the Kaikohe, Waitangi, Kaikino. Interesting that you're saying that the land drainage through the rural properties is being impacted by this further development of residential and small, rural businesses, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, you get into conflict because you'll have people in the urban area saying it's a stormwater drain, but the rural production says they don't have to pipe it, so it's not urban stormwater. So then you get into there where they're paying an urban stormwater rate and they're paying a land drainage rate, but because they are able to build close to the drain, we can't service it. And we ask that it be taken off the plan, or when subdivisions like that happen, it's got to change from rural land drains to urban stormwater. You can't have this conflict, and that conflict continues to happen in Kaikohe because developments happen without consideration of that because they don't really know. There's down the Aonui Strait, you've got Monganui haulage. They've got a yard that's happening. Where does their water go? It's got to go down a drain that goes through a land drainage drain to get to the outlet on the opposite side of the road. But it doesn't have to be recognised when building it, doing impermeable surfaces, rules or anything like that. It's just discharged into the drain.
So you're suggesting that mapping would be very apparent, that it's got to be considered?
I think a mapping in the district plan is absolutely essential. We can't rely on the bylaws because the bylaws have actually going through the process and it's in submission stage now, has no teeth. Everything in the bylaw refers to written approval by the council. I've tested this rule. There is no process within FNDC at the present time to actually apply for those additions, those alterations, etc. So it's not good enough to have it as a tool without it being in the plan.
Yeah, I can't remember the hearing number that came up in Chair, but it was an issue, and we did discuss it earlier, but it keeps reappearing.
It will reappear again as tomorrow we have our community board meeting in regard to the submissions that have come in and the adoption to go forward to the council following week.
The concept of mapping, having it on planning maps, is that it's highly visible, so new landowners understand that it's a drainage scheme that affects multitude of properties, so maintenance, access, etc. has to be
And more
looked after.
importantly, when applications come in, it's very clear that it is in a land drainage area or close to one, the 10-metre rule. You know, no buildings next to the drain, etc., is essential, because we have drains sometimes where people build a shed, even if it's a garden shed, but then they want it cleaned out, or they're complaining because it's flooding, but you can't get to it because they built a shed. And it's things like that that needs to be there in the consent, at the consenting process stage, not afterwards when we've. I feel sorry for sometimes the FNDC staff when they have to go out and try and do compliance, and they're more or less being run under the bus by this filing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
One last question. Are you proud of your daughter?
Hope I trained her well.
Oh, we are. We're very proud. Thank you very much for your.
I should just declare that I've known Fiona King for probably 30 years. So I'm not sure if that's a conflict or.
No, I'm sure it's a complementary interest.
I was in the council in 2005.
Yeah, for a short stint. Yes.
But
Thank
I
you,
did
Fiona.
bring you a box of goodies and I've left it in the truck. Since avocados have no value, we have 30 odd hectares that we're actually dropping to the ground. So there's avocados galore. So look, I've given Prissy a box to support your great efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Very, very generous of you to do so.
I'll take them back to Auckland and sell them.
I think we might be having guacamole for. Just a shame I'm up here for 2 weeks. It now leaves
That's nice.
the very, very patient and accommodating
Mr. Ross.
Mr. Ross. So, welcome, Mr. Ross. Thank you very much for being so accommodating to those other submitters.
That's right. I'm local. I'm self-employed. I'm not paying. Not
And now the last submitter,
not being
so
paid by anybody for it.
we've got plenty of time, so we'll hand it over to you. Do you have anything to hand up to us?
Oh, I have printed out your statement actually, for the reminder.
Even at my age, this is the first time for me, and I still wasn't quite sure how everything worked. How much to write, how little to write, and whether I even needed to talk about the first two. If we can go to S381 first, S380 second, and then 367, a slightly more complicated one third.
Sorry, I've got them in the wrong order then. But
S381 and even 380. I won't necessarily read out what I've written. The local surveyor, I just felt it's my responsibility to check various things in the district plan, and I did find some mapping errors. And this is the first one, and it has been mostly corrected, but just number 115 has still been left out of the what are we doing? Rural lifestyles. Yes. Yeah. So as long as that's correct, I don't think we need to dwell on it. It's just a mapping. It's been described correctly, but just the mapping just needs to be amended.
Yes,
I can help clarify that. I think it has just come from the actual sliding of the cadastral boundaries. It's actually happened in the operative plan as well. It's an error there, and it's an error here, but it's slightly different. So when looking to correct it, sort of looked at how close the PDP zoning was, and it did look like 115 was left off. But when you look at the operative district plan, you can see that the entire block should have been shifted up to include 115 as well. So I'm going to be recommending that 115 is added in as well.
Yeah, but I was just going on the old hard copy district plan, and I haven't even looked at the the online version. S380.
So that property just as you come around the corner into Opanoni, right?
It's the first house on the right,
First house, yeah.
which is yeah. So it's a farmland beside it.
Does it have it has a drawing on it too?
So should we move on to S380? And yeah, so once again, I'm pleased that the reporting plan has recommended the acceptance of my request to rezone these 8 small sites from rural production to general residential. 4 northern sites were actually created by the County Council. The other sites on the western side of the road for residential use in 1988, just after they had approved a scheme change for this land to be zoned to residential 1. This zoning scheme change appears to have been missed when the current operative district plan was formulated. And the same rural production zoning has been carried forward again into the proposed plan. So there are these 4 small sites, all around about 1,000 square metres. There's 2 slightly larger sites, but they've both been cross-leased, so effectively they're about 1,000 square metres each. And the reporting plan has recommended that that area be zoned general residential.
Okay, and so you're in that you're
Yes, I didn't know whether I had to come back and just reinforce it again, but
so you're literally here to,
so as long as you're accepting
yes,
reporting plan as recommendation.
you've asked for these changes to be made. The council officer report is recommended that they do be made, and you're here to confirm that you support the recommendation.
It does actually happen.
Oh,
Yes.
there you go.
Yeah.
Happy
Well,
Sunday.
we are generally taking the position that if the position the council officers and solicitors aren't challenged, then and we don't see any other glaring error, and I don't think we do, then we're likely to accept that recommendation. So you can take that back with you if that helps.
I may not be here next time, next 20 years time or
But
whatever.
anyway, as I say, you're not going to get a final recommendation from us until March next year. But what I'm saying to you is that because you and the council officer are aligned, we're likely to accept that recommendation.
Yeah, there was another one in Kaikohe where a couple of light industrial sections have been included in the recreation reserve, so that's been corrected.
Yeah,
I haven't dealt with that one today.
You're sharp.
The other one, S367, was just a little bit more complicated.
Right, so this one is in contention.
Yes. So I have had over 60 years experience dealing with cadastral engineering and planning issues in that Okorihi Marae district. I would have worked on well over 100 different properties in this locality and have a good understanding of the physical nature of the land and the social connections binding this community together. In 2021, after discussions with the district plan review team, I suggested further discussion with a member of your review team, and we could look over maps and investigate the extent of the semi-residential area. And I was disappointed that this offer was not followed up, so that my local knowledge could be utilised in arriving at a consensus as to whether my proposed change of zoning was worth pursuing. So my original submission, therefore, was for the area that I've indicated to be rezoned rural residential. But during discussions with the reporting planner in May this year, it appeared that a rezoning to rural lifestyle would be a more appropriate request. Every property that I've included in my request is described on council's maps as having a land use of residential or lifestyle. And it's a huge difference between looking at maps of this area and actually being there on the ground. The land is quite hilly, with some areas of indigenous vegetation, and most sites contain a dwelling, many dating back several decades. These properties and their residents are an integral part of the local Okorihi Marae community, with a close connection to the village and its amenities, as well as a focus on the adjacent harbour. The roads that serve these areas lead only back to the village. They're quite short roads, don't go anywhere else. There's no real connection with land to the east and to the south. Natural barriers separate these lifestyle properties from farmed rural production land. There are steep bush-clad mountains to the east of the Kaikohe Road area, and a very steep 100-metre drop into the Waipapa stream south of Newton Road on the southern end. Natural hazards are not an issue, as the Kaikohe Road and Newton Road properties are generally elevated up to 200 metres above sea level. Small area of Block 1, Liga 145-920, adjacent to the Waiharoia stream at the northern end of my identified area, is shown to be subject to flooding. But this flooding would not threaten the elevated building site on this 3-hectare property. Very narrow strip along the Waipapa stream to the south of Newton Road is shown subject to flooding, but this area is down the deep valley and is not accessible. The areas that I have identified are already in lifestyle usage, with a considerable number of residents and very few farm animals. Rezoning to rural lifestyle will not lead to any fragmentation of nearby rural production land or have any reverse sensitivity effects. Quoting from the overview for the rural lifestyle zone in the proposed district plan, the role of the rural lifestyle zone is to provide an area specifically for rural lifestyle living, accommodating the demand for rural lifestyle living in appropriate areas of the district, close to transport routes, with good access to services in urban areas and settlements, is intended to reduce ad hoc or sporadic rural lifestyle development throughout the rural production zone that adversely affects on primary production activities. And this zone is characterised by open space and vegetated landscapes, interspersed by farm buildings, structures and residential units. Areas suitable for rural lifestyle living have been identified because they are already fragmented with residential land uses, are on low value soils, or where consent has already been granted to undertake more dense living than anticipated in the rural production zone. So I contend that the areas that I have identified are consistent with this description, and that a change of zoning to rural lifestyle would be appropriate. Most of the properties are below the minimum size for this zone, so further possible subdivision will be very limited. Areas adjoin existing rural lifestyle and general residential zones, so a rezoning to rural lifestyle would not be out of place. Finally, I apologise if it's considered that I wasted everyone's time in continuing with my submission without fully addressing all of the criteria. As a practical-minded surveyor with a professional connection to this locality, I consider that the areas that I've identified should be recognised in the plan as being part of the Okorihi Marae village community. Thank you.
And just clarification of exactly where it is. Are they the lifestyle blocks that run up Kaikohe when you get up on top by the side of the road?
Yes, Kaikohe is quite a narrow, metalled road, climbing up to the end of it, where it's a dead end.
Yeah, it's up on the ridge line.
Newton Road is the one
Yeah, I know where it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
along the ridge.
So it's those sites that are up on the ridge line, up, literally you climb up to the water tank, isn't it?
And
Sorry, I was saying if it's helpful, it's figure 21 of my section for the report.
I was looking for that a minute ago.
Page 90.
It's on page 80.
Yeah,
Oh, there it is.
they're good.
I'm going to highlight.
He
all
drew
this.
it. That's the one, yeah.
the type of sea is quite small there.
Oh, so it's off both Newton and Kaikohe. Okay.
Yes,
Got it.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
My question for you is, I understand you're a surveyor, but obviously council's trying to bring a little bit of economic demand, supply, rationale to its rezoning decision making. Have you got any evidence to give us on what you think might be the demand factors for this rezoning?
I'm not seeing a lot of subdivision. I'm just trying to give it a zoning that I felt was more appropriate for the area. Council has to provide services, I think, for general residential areas, but they don't necessarily have to provide services for rural lifestyle, do they?
Now, I'm not talking about whether the sites can be serviced. What I'm asking about is there demand for rural, I think it's rural residential, rural lifestyle?
Rural lifestyle.
Is there demand for rural lifestyle lots in this part of the whānau and a
I think it's already happened. It's already happened, and that most of those areas are already divided into blocks of up to 2 hectares. There are some slightly bigger areas that I've included for continuity.
So
But
you
that's
would
already,
think,
I feel that's already happened.
so your view is that if it was zoned rural lifestyle, it wouldn't necessarily lead to further subdivision?
That's what I consider, yes. Yes.
And are most of these sites occupied?
Most of them are occupied, yes.
So at least
Yes, there are lots of houses there, and their residents outnumber animals by probably 5 or 10 to 1.
And it's quite steep around there, is it?
Yes, yes, yes. The Newton Road is up on a high ridge, and most of them are there because they can see down to the harbour. Yeah, the harbour is quite a focus on these areas. And the Kaikohe Road climbs up from not too much above sea level to I'd say 150 metres up at the top end. So most of them are elevated, and they have just about every site would have some sort of view of the harbour.
Just one question about land cover. I can understand the idea of moving up, elevated out of coastal hazards. But in terms of land cover, is it mostly indigenous bush? A lot of these areas, I'm not a resident here, but when I look up at the hills, it does seem like there's a lot of indigenous biodiversity there. Like,
I think a lot of it is second growth Manukau that has come up. It was possibly mostly farmed in the old days, but there are some areas sloping down towards the streams that are unstable, and the land is definitely moving, and it's probably a good idea for those to remain in Manukau cover.
so it's not in productive use, it's lifestyle blocks with bush cover.
No, as I said, I saw a couple of goats on one property just where there's a path to keep the place clean. A small herd of cows got brought into a property that I was subdividing within this area. Because when I started, the Kaikohe was this high, and I couldn't even get down to the ground. But apart from that, there are very, very few animals that are actually plant or run on these properties.
Thank you.
Do you have any views of the property owners themselves? Do they all support what you're saying?
No, that's one thing I haven't done, and part of my apology, I haven't, apart from one, this one that I said I was working on. Yes, if this zoning was changed and their rates all went up, they probably wouldn't be very popular. So no, I haven't spoken to the residents.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your, again, your patience and your evidence today, Mr. Ross.
Yes, I mean, it's going to happen this time, but hopefully it'll could happen in the future when some of us are long gone.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And I believe that brings us to a close for today's proceeding. Are we going to do a Kerikeri?
Yes, I'll close us with a Kerikeri and then I'll stop the recording. Po hiri, po ramarama, po o te pakaro, po o te tangata, po o te aroha. Tipo e hiri nei I a tātou. Mauri ora ki a tātou. Haumie, huie, tākie. Right, and stopping the recording.
Mr. Ross.